Welcome to Keith Knight Don't Tread on Anyone and the Libertarian Institute, back to discuss Anti-Politics by Sal Mayweather. Sal, can you give me a summary of the thesis of this book or the collection of essays?
Yes. So the idea is that when we look at strategy and libertarian strategy, we have the right ideas. I think that's sort of kind of clear and obvious to many of us. The question is, how come we still struggle to put these ideas into practice, especially if they're as great as we all think they are? And the answer to me is that we have the wrong strategy. We've had the wrong approach, and that is we've been playing the state's game by engaging in the political arena, right? And that's what they want us to do. So the idea in this book is that the way to stop that, is to engage in anti-politics, is to engage in things outside the purview of politics and politicians, like passive resistance, civil disobedience, and counter-economics. And that's sort of the idea that I'm hoping to impart on the reader.
Excellent. What I want to do is make the steel man case for the strategy of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus to use the Libertarian Party to spread the message of freedom, something you have unapologetically opposed. I am going to try to keep it to 10 minutes, and Sal will get 10 minutes to rebut. I will begin. Is there anything you want to set the stage for before we give our 10-minute cases?
No. I hope I can stretch out my rebuttal for 10 minutes, but we'll see.
All right. So I want to start with the problem. I want to quote your book. What does it mean that 30,000 men, not athletes, but rather weak and ordinary people, have subdued 200 million vigorous, clever, capable, and freedom-loving people? Does not the figure make it clear that it is not the English who have enslaved the Indians, but the Indians who have enslaved themselves? That is a Leo Tolstoy quote, essentially saying that it's not that there's a group of people called government, they're in power, we need to evacuate them from the building and then privatize the building. The problem is in the minds of the masses. So to quote from Hans Hoppe's A Theory of Socialism and Capitalism, he says, the state cannot be fought simply by boycotting it as a private business could, because an aggressor does not respect the negative judgment revealed by boycotts. But it also cannot simply be fought by countering its aggression with defensive violence, because the state's aggression is supported by public opinion. Thus, everything depends on a change in public opinion. When it comes to the primetime news, we have roughly 4.5 million people every night tuning in to Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC. With regard to presidential debates, as many as 80 million people watched live the 2016 debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. In other words, our goal is to change public opinion, because the problem is the mind of the masses includes people believing in the concept of authority, political authority. And in order to do that, we need to occupy the centers of power where people get their opinions from. One of the strengths that we can also embrace is the Austrian insight referred to as the division of labor. Lou Rockwell articulates the importance of this when he says, indeed, the division of labor is based on human difference. Each of us finds the niche that suits our natural talents best, and by specializing in that particular thing, we can do most effectively serve our fellow man. Our fellow man likewise specializes in what he is best suited for, and we in turn benefit from the fruits of his specialized knowledge and skill. In other words, it's not that we all have to engage in agorism and the counter economy. A lot of people should, but it's not for everyone. There are some people who it would be better for them to use the method of communication, whether it's through the mainstream media or even the political process, to get the word out about why freedom is superior to coercion. In your book, in the preface, you say, after all, with such a diverse set of tactics having been deployed against the state, we should be able to draw a comparison and isolate only the most successful strategies. I propose the most successful strategy for changing public opinion in favor of libertarianism was the Ron Paul campaign of 2008 and 2012. Therefore, our strategy should be use all methods and mediums of communication to best convince the masses that violence is immoral, even when a group called government does it, i.e., political authority is illegitimate. The main thing is the LPMC strategy does not stop other people from engaging in these things. Their strategy is not stop agorism and everyone do this. It attempts to complement the existence of agorism. I want to go over the small division of labor that exists within the movement today. I'm also going to name people who are no longer with us. The point is, here are all the people doing tons of different things. And in order to be in opposition to the LPMC, you have to be willing to say all this division of labor is good, but that division of labor is bad. Making the case for utilitarianism, we have David Friedman. Natural rights, Murray Rothbard. The guy blackpilling people on democracy is Hans Hermann Hoppe. We have fiction writers like Robert Heinlein. We have Anthony Davies using empirical data, Per Bieland using economics, Mark Victor, the attorney for freedom, Tom Woods with things like Liberty Classroom, Lou Rockwell, the Mises Institute, Michael Huemer and Robert Nozick, PhDs in philosophy, giving us a nice amount of legitimacy. Stefan Molyneux making philosophy videos. Michael Malice specializing in North Korea. Lysander Spooner obliterating the Constitution. Dave Smith getting on places like Joe Rogan and Fox News. James Corbett's excellent contributions of laughing at tyrants. Larkin Rose's consistency test in Candles in the Dark. Scott Horton focusing on foreign policy. Walter Block being obsessed with the nap in defending the undefendable. Isaac Morehouse taking down the education system. Connor Boyack focusing in on children's books. Adam Kokesh's civil disobedience and man on the street interviews. You have to be willing to say all of that division is good, but it's bad that we have Tho Bishop engaged in the paleo strategy and Michael Heiss with the LPMC. None of those interfere with Satoshi Nakamoto using Bitcoin, Ross Ulbricht using the Silk Road, AgoristHosting.com, John Bush's Kratom organization, Jeremy Kaufman's library organization, or Cody Wilson designing the Liberator, nor does it interfere with the great website 3dprintergoburr.com with 3 R's for those who want to purchase 3D printers. The reason it's so important that we get on that stage was actually articulated by a member of the establishment himself, Cass Sunstein. He said in his book Conformity, there are 2 main things he focuses on. Those who are confident and firm will have particular influence and can lead otherwise identical groups in dramatically different directions. Point number 2. People are extremely vulnerable to the unanimous views of others, and hence a single dissenter or voice of sanity is likely to have a huge impact. That is how the elites talk amongst each other. They have a psychological understanding that they have to have such a monopoly on this deception that they cannot let so much as one voice get through, because when it does, you get the Ron Paul movement. You get people reading Lysander Spooner and Murray Rothbard. Let's go over some examples of unapologetic political messaging that our opponents use. Medicare for all, ridiculous idea that so many people are able to latch onto because people have infiltrated the political system and gotten the word out. Andrew Yang, UBI, something ridiculous and totally unheard of some time ago, is now talked about rather seriously. The pro-choice people say, my body, my choice. They don't say, well, maybe if we operated outside of the system, we could allow for abortion to exist. They say, my body, my choice, by any means necessary. The LGBT community says, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. They say marriage equality, bold messaging, unapologetic. This is what the LPMC strategy will engage in. We have many examples of it working in the political arena already. You might say, well, this has not worked in the past. Well, going back to the year 400 BC in China, people were trying to discover how to engage in flight. People in 1485, Leonardo da Vinci had the ornithopter, the attempt to create an airplane, but no one ever created an airplane or gave us the ability to fly until someone found the recipe to do so, the Wright brothers in the 1900s. So yes, something cannot work for a very, very, very long time until you're able to find the formula where it does succeed. Finally, to summarize my points, the LPMC strategy allows freedom advocates to specialize in the division of labor. Doing so does not come at the expense of agorism and can even be complementary to the goal of recruiting agorists to engage in the counter-economy. Therefore, the LPMC strategy is justified as a pragmatic and worthwhile method of achieving freedom through a change in public opinion. And that is all I have. Take as much time to respond as you'd like, please.
Well, I'm convinced. I'm renouncing Agorism, and I'm
Finally
signing up with Michael Heiss, and I'm going to give my $25 donation. That's it. So, anyway, it's been a nice show, Keith.
You're welcome.
I mean, so that was good. I mean, you make a lot of great points in there, and I don't really necessarily disagree with all of them. I guess before I go into like my thoughts on the LPMC, let me just go over some specific points that you made that I just jotted down. First, you quoted Hoppe, "The state can't be fought," and I agree with that. I think a lot of part of like the strength of agorism comes from that idea that we can't fight the state, right? That's what we tell these bug boys, that it's absurd to like meet the state head on. Like that's why we're not sovereign citizens. The state can't be fought, but it can be outcompeted, right? And I think we've seen this with Bitcoin and fiat currency, right? That just proves it right there. Again, we can prove that with the growth of arbitration and mediation vis-a-vis the decline in people wanting to use, state courts and legal services because it's so expensive and inefficient. You also said that the debates are highly watched, I guess implying, if not outright saying, that that's why that justifies this approach. But I think the debates are highly watched, and that's exactly why the LP will never have a chance to be on that debate stage, right? This is a point that I've made frequently. I think I might have made it in anti-politics as well, but the FEC is a cartelization device of the political arena, the same way that the Federal Reserve is a cartelization device of the banking sector. So just as the Federal Reserve will not tolerate any competition in the monetary commodity, nor will the FEC tolerate any competition in the political arena. So it's absurd of us to think that we're going to get a shot on the debate stage, right? And history bears this out. Every time Ron Paul or Gary Johnson achieved some metric that they needed to advance in the political process, what did they do? They just raised the bar a little bit higher, right? And that was true of Gary Johnson getting into the debates. That was true of Ron Paul. I forget, speaking at the convention or something like that. But yeah, so the game is rigged. And I think that the fact that the game is rigged only shows that, it's sort of, you wouldn't play a game of cards with a group of people that you know were cheating you. So why would you engage in this political process if you knew that it was all designed to cheat you out of your rights? You also said that, people have different niches, and you mentioned the division of labor. I don't think that anyone's niche, anyone's specialty can be parasitism. I think that that's not really possible to have a niche in politics. But on the other hand, everybody can find their niche. Everybody does have a place in the market, right? In the Agora, everybody has a certain spot, but nobody has a right or nobody can specialize in robbery. That's absurd, especially in a free society. You also said that the most successful strategy so far has been Ron Paul, the Ron Paul movement, and I agree with that. If we qualify that and say that the goal of the strategy is to create more libertarians, right? That's not our goal as Agorists. Our goal as Agorists is not to create more libertarians, but to create more liberty, and that's the number one main difference between the Agorist and the party arc, right? And I don't even believe that I think that it's sort of absurd that they masquerade a political institution as an educational institution, right? If they wanted to actually educate people, they would write books and have podcasts and teach courses and stuff like that, not try to, become part and parcel of the state. So I don't think that they can educate people, but yeah, I don't think that that's, if your goal was to educate people, it shouldn't be through the political arena, because any message that you give to somebody, any message that someone gets through a political official or a political party, must necessarily be received through the lens of political authority. So what message of liberty can they really be getting at the end of the day? Again, and I've worn this example out, but advocating for liberty from a political party is sort of like advocating for chastity from a whorehouse. Or the example I use in the book is like sort of trying to advocate for cardiovascular health from the inside of McDonald's, right? It doesn't make any sense. No one's going to take you seriously. So if you're up on a stage telling people, like, hey, I want to be in charge of your life, but we need more liberty, no one's going to believe your message. You're just undermining your own narrative. And I guess that is really sort of even if I guess even the people in the LPMC and the LP in a larger sense who do understand the absurdity of the educational narrative, which, by the way, Murray Rothbard has a great topic in here, or a great essay in here about renouncing the use of the party as an educational platform. I believe that's The Party Once More is the name of the chapter. But I think at least the ones who reject that nonsense and they say, okay, yes, we actually are trying to get political power. At least they're being honest, right? But that sort of is another difference, right? Whereas they're trying to get a seat at the table, right? They just want one seat at the table, right? That's that's what you were saying, right? We just have to get one person in there, and then we things will change. We don't want a spot at the table as Agorists. We just want to get close enough to the table so that it's in distance and we can flip that son of a bitch over. That's our goal as Agorists. Another thing that I noticed is that you discussed the absurdity of political language, but you ignored the most absurd of all political language, which is the Libertarian Party, that glorious contradiction that the partyarchs love to ignore. The Libertarian Party. How could you have a political party based on the principles of liberty? I'll never understand this. Maybe somebody in the LP could reach out to me and explain that to me, because I think to include any term referencing liberty and then another term referencing politics is necessarily a contradiction in terms. Finally, I guess the point that I would just sort of wrap up on is that one of the things, and I guess the main thing that the LPMC always is going to throw back in the face of the Agorists is Ron Paul. It's always going to be Ron Paul, Ron Paul, Ron Paul. And Agorists are probably going to have to answer this question for time immemorial, right? Well, the thing is, Ron Paul did it as a Republican. He didn't do it as a member of the Libertarian Party. And he did that for a very specific reason. It's because he tried it with the LP in 1988 and he got nowhere, right? He got absolutely nowhere. So, going back to what I said about the cartelization of the political arena by the FEC, at least Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012 realized that. And instead of running from a third party and being branded some wacky, kook, he ran from within the duopoly. And we saw, obviously how that worked out. They just, undermined him in an underhanded fashion. But that's not to lend any credence to Tho Bishop's strategy either, as much as I'm a huge fan of Tho Bishop, and I prefer the paleo approach to the LP approach for that exact reason. But I still think at the end of the day, the only way to create more liberty is through counter-economics and entrepreneurial innovation.
The book is Anti-Politics, a collection of Agorist essays. Sal, where's the best place to purchase the book?
Amazon.com, and Keith or somebody hopefully will have their affiliate link on, so you guys can get a little piece of the pie up on their website, and definitely check that out. 3D Printer Go Burr for 3D printers, Agora Threads, and SolveAgorist.com.
Thanks to everyone for watching Keith Knight Don't Tread on Anyone and the Libertarian Institute. Sal, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Keith.